Welcome back. Ready to flex those mental muscles a bit?
Always up for that.
We're diving deep into Amy Morin's 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. I gotta say, this book, it really throws down the gauntlet on resilience, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And what I appreciate is, it's not just about slapping on a happy face and pretending everything's peachy.
Right. It's more like ditching the baggage that's weighing us down, those habits that keep us stuck.
Exactly. Morin's point is we often get so busy adding more to our to-do list, to our self-improvement plans, that we forget to clear out the junk.
Oh, that's so true. It's like trying to cram more stuff into an already overflowing suitcase. Something's got to give.
Yes. And just like, building physical strength takes time and effort, so does mental resilience. We all start at different fitness levels, but everyone can get stronger.
So you're saying you don't have to be some kind of mental ninja to start this journey?
Not at all. And Morin, she jumps right in with a habit that can really drain your energy: self-pity. Life throws curveballs, no doubt, but it's how we react to those curveballs that matters.
It's about how we choose to show up, even when things get tough. And speaking of showing up, Morin uses the amazing Marla Runyon as an example, right? The legally blind marathon runner. Her story blows me away every time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, talk about resilience. She could have easily given into self-pity. Instead, she focused on what she could control: her attitude, her training, and she practiced gratitude, which is huge. It's a powerful reminder that our perspective, it can either hold us back or propel us forward.
No kidding. And, speaking of perspective, Morin also talks about not giving away your power, right? Like letting other people's opinions define you.
Ugh, that one hits home. We've all been there, letting someone else's negativity dim our own shine.
Totally.
But as Morin points out, you are the author of your own story. You get to define your own worth, not anyone else. And I think Oprah is a perfect example of this. Talk about overcoming obstacles.
She's like the queen of turning challenges into triumphs, right?
Absolutely. And that leads us to another crucial point: embracing change. Change can feel scary, but Morin suggests that real growth, it actually requires stepping outside those comfort zones.
So we're talking about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
In a way, yes. Because if you think about it, avoiding change is like, I don't know, it's like staying in a tiny room when there's a whole world waiting outside.
I love that analogy. So embracing change and also accepting what you can't control. Now that one, I'll be honest, it's a tough one for me.
I hear you. It's so easy to get caught in that trap of trying to micromanage everything. But as Morin reminds us, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is surrender.
Surrender.
Yeah, surrender to what is. Let go of that need to control everything and focus your energy on what you can influence. Like Morin talks about Terry Fox, who ran across Canada on one leg to raise awareness for cancer research.
Oh, wow. What a story.
Right.
Yeah.
He couldn't control his diagnosis, but he could control his response. He chose to focus on making a difference.
Talk about turning a difficult situation into something inspiring. So we've got overcoming self-pity, owning your worth, embracing change, and focusing on what you can control. That's a pretty solid foundation for building mental strength.
It is, and Morin, she doesn't stop there. She also tackles another big one: people-pleasing.
Oh, people-pleasing. That's a tough one to break free from.
It is, right. It's so easy to fall into that trap, especially like today when everyone's got an opinion and we're constantly bombarded with expectations. It's like we're trying to be everything to everyone. And as Morin points out, that's a recipe for disaster.
Burnout city. You end up so busy trying to make everyone happy that you forget about your own needs, your own values.
Exactly. And that's where setting boundaries comes in, which Morin talks about.
Boundaries, yeah. It's about saying no sometimes, even when it feels uncomfortable.
It is, and it's about recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You have to take care of yourself first.
It's not selfish, it's self-care.
Exactly. And speaking of self-care, Morin also encourages us to look at how fear might be holding us back, especially when it comes to taking risks.
Because playing it safe all the time, that can keep us stuck too, right?
Right. And I love how Morin uses the example of Albert Ellis, the psychologist.
Oh yeah, he's the one who decided to face his fear of rejection head on.
He did. He actually challenged himself to ask 130 different women out on dates, fully expecting most of them to say no.
Oh, wow. Talk about a bold move. What happened?
Well, he found that the anticipation of rejection was actually way worse than the rejection itself.
Interesting. So by facing his fear, he actually disarmed it.
Exactly. It's like, what are you afraid of? And then go do it.
Easier said than done sometimes, right?
Definitely. But it's something to think about. What limiting beliefs are holding you back?
For sure. Now, another point Morin makes that really struck me is the importance of not dwelling on the past.
Oh, letting go of those past regrets, that's a big one. It's like trying to run a race while carrying a backpack full of rocks.
The worst. It's exhausting. But how do you actually let go? Any tips from Maureen?
She talks about focusing on the facts of what happened rather than getting swept up in the emotions.
Look at it objectively, like an outsider.
Exactly. And then ask yourself, what lessons can I learn from this? And then, crucially, forgive yourself.
Forgiving yourself, forgiving others, that can be so powerful, but not always easy.
It's a process, for sure, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely. And speaking of learning from the past, Maureen also challenges us to, not repeat our mistakes.
Easier said than done, right?
Sometimes it feels like we're hardwired to repeat those same old patterns.
It's true. But as Maureen points out, if we keep making the same mistakes, it probably means we haven't fully learned the lesson.
It's like reading the same page of a book over and over again, expecting a different ending.
Right. It's about being open to doing things differently. Now, another point Maureen makes, and I think it's so relevant today, is this idea of not resenting other people's successes.
Oh, the comparison game. Social media makes it so easy to fall into that trap.
It does, but as Maureen reminds us, someone else's success doesn't take away from your own.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we never really know what's going on behind the scenes, right? Everyone's got their own struggles.
It's like we're all running our own race, right?
Yeah.
And someone else crossing the finish line first doesn't mean you're not making progress in your own lane.
Exactly. And I love how Maureen uses the example of, what was it, H.B. Reese and Milton Hershey.
Oh, yeah. The Chocolate Kings.
Right. Reese actually worked for Hershey before starting his own company.
He did. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And instead of feeling threatened, Hershey actually supported Reese's venture. They both ended up achieving incredible success.
That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
like there's enough success to go around for everyone. Okay, so we've talked about comparison, but Maureen also emphasizes something that I think is really important, being patient. You don't get mentally strong overnight, right?
That's for sure. It's like you wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to be ripped, right?
Definitely not.
It's the same with mental strength. It takes consistent effort, dedication.
It's a journey, not a sprint.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, Maureen talks about the importance of alone time.
Ah, yes. Alone time for me, that's essential.
Right. And I think it's easy to feel guilty about taking time for yourself, especially in today's, always on culture.
It's true. We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us to be more productive, more connected.
Exactly. But as Maureen points out, solitude and loneliness, they're not the same thing.
They're totally different. Alone time can be so restorative.
It is. It's like that's when you can recharge, reconnect with yourself.
And you know what? I actually think that when you take time for yourself, when you fill your own cup, you're actually better equipped to connect with others in a more meaningful way.
100%. And speaking of connecting with others, another quality Maureen highlights is this idea of not feeling entitled.
Oh, that sense of entitlement. Yeah, I can see how that would be detrimental.
It is. It's that the world owes me something attitude.
Right. Whereas mentally strong people, they focus on what they can contribute, not what they can get.
Exactly. And I love how Maureen uses Sarah Robinson's story to illustrate this point.
Yes, Sarah's story. Now, that's a powerful example of resilience and generosity. For those who haven't heard it, would you mind sharing a bit about Sarah?
Sure. Sarah was diagnosed with a brain tumor in her early 20s. And even while going through treatment, facing this incredibly tough challenge, she decided to focus on helping others.
Wow.
She realized that a lot of cancer patients had to travel for treatment and didn't have a comfortable place to stay. So she helped create a place for them, like a home away from home.
That's amazing. Even in the midst of her own struggles, she was thinking of others.
I know. Talk about inspiring.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot today, from overcoming self-pity to embracing alone time and, everything in between.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But even just implementing one or two of these things can make a big difference.
Definitely. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress.
Right. So true. So for anyone listening, we challenge you, pick one thing from Maureen's list and see if you can put it into practice this week. You got this.
You totally do.
And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into 13 things mentally strong people don't do. We'll catch you next time.